First matter will be application Dunster Street Restaurant Corporation doing business as Dunster Restaurant. Peter Lee, manager, has applied to transfer the all-alcoholic beverages restaurant license currently held by Irish Crimson LLC doing business as Kennedy's on the Square at 15 Dunster Street. Applicant is also applying for an alteration of license premise description, pledge of license, and entertainment license to include music playing above conversation level and 3 TVs, video screens, film projector screens. The proposed hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday, and 8 a.m. until 2 a.m. Thursday through Saturday, and the night before a legal holiday. Proposed seating capacity is 90.
Let me just announce before we get started why we're holding the Basha Cafe matter for a little bit, and it may be the last thing we get to tonight, just because we're waiting for the fire chief to come for that matter, since he and the police commissioner were the ones who heard that matter initially on August 11th. So, but we are proceeding with the other matters.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is James Rafferty. I'm appearing this evening on behalf of the applicant, Dunster Street Restaurant Corporation, doing business as Dunster Restaurant. Seated to my right is Peter Lee, the proposed manager, and to Mr. Lee's right is Patrick Lee, the older brother who keeps an eye on him. Mr. Chairman, you may have not had the pleasure of meeting the Lee brothers, but they are, they wouldn't say this, but I would say they represent the epitome of good licensees. They have a number of venues in the city of Cambridge, primarily in the Harvard Square or greater Harvard Square region. They're known to the Commission for their operation of Dunster, of Grafton Street in Harvard Square, of Russell House Tavern in Harvard Square, the Park Restaurant, which is formerly the Red Line, and also Temple Bar up on Mass Ave heading towards Porter Square. So they have developed a well-deserved reputation as responsible licensees who provide a good service to their neighbors. They enjoy a strong relationship with the Commission. They're highly cooperative, and when opportunities present themselves, they have looked and taken advantage of them. So the current situation involves a license, a relatively young license that's on Dunster Street. It operated as Kennedy's on the Square for about a year. Prior to that, it was First Printer for about a year or two before that, but prior to that, it was not a licensed operation. This license was transferred into that location. I believe this might have been the 99 license, or I'm not exactly sure where it came from, but it's probably only been on Dunster Street for about 2 or 3 years. In this location happens to back up to the building that the Russell House Tavern is located in. The Russell House Tavern is in the building that formerly housed the Worst House restaurant for many years, Mr. Fagulo's iconic German restaurant in Harvard Square. Same landlord, the Cambridge Savings Bank, owns both buildings. Kennedy's, unfortunately, was not successful. They ceased operating, and they have not been operational for several months now. So we have executed an agreement to acquire the assets, including the liquor license. We are in the midst of finalizing agreements with the landlord, and the Lees intend to operate a restaurant, I would say, of a similar quality and caliber of their other restaurants in Harvard Square and Cambridge. The proposal has some modifications to the floor plan, but not many. I mean, the basic infrastructure, the kitchen, the layout, location of the dining rooms, the bars is essentially unchanged. They are extremely experienced operators. They have a very proven, incredible track record as licensees in Cambridge, and they are requesting that the Commission approve the transfer of this license.
Could you describe a little bit what the premises alterations are that are being proposed?
Maybe one of the applicants might just briefly touch upon that.
Sure. There really aren't any alterations. against that wall, we're gonna put a small oyster bar. Beyond that, the footprint is gonna remain the same.
Okay, and there's also an entertainment license being applied for?
That's correct. The entertainment is the typical entertainment with some combination of background music at or above conversation level, and I imagine we've got some television in the venue as well. I'll confess I need to review the actual entertainment license, but that is correct. There is not an application for live entertainment, nor dancing by patrons.
So I take it by your hours, you're planning on operating all 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all 7 days of the week?
Just lunch and dinner.
So the 8 a.m. opening,
I think the existing license has an 8 a.m. opening, so that just transfers over.
so do you do anything on the modify the operation hours?
You'd have to amend the hours to be the actual hours of operation.
I think
in the license, we put the hours of our operation, but I think on the existing license, it may say 8 a.m.
Well, you're gonna have brunch on Saturdays and Sundays?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
the 8
no breakfast service during the course of the week, though, right?
No. I found in my experience that many licensees do have that earlier opening. People are in the restaurant, they're actively preparing, deliveries are being received, and food prep is going on.
Certainly, there will be people in the restaurant before 8 a.m.
But not to be served.
No, not to be served, but I think you'd probably find that, given the nature of CV licenses, that many establishments that don't serve breakfast actually have an 8 a.m. opening. So I think the focus, my experience tends to be more on closing, so the application does recite or contain the 8 a.m. start time in the CV license. It provides flexibility. There are occasions when the Harvard Business Association might request them to host, I know you have in the past, if there are other Harvard restaurants, they would have an event. There isn't much call for alcohol service, but there's certainly food service, breakfast, coffee. We've never been to one of their more raucous meetings. So that's kind of the discrepancy, if you will. I imagine that these opening times in your other licenses are probably reflect the 8 a.m. opening time.
So what's your actual operation going to be?
Lunch and dinner.
So lunch should be 11 o'clock or 10:30 or?
On weekends, we would open at 10.
Right. On Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah.
And then weekdays, what do you have?
Yes. But we plan to do a significant takeout business in this location, so it could be 411 that will actually have people in the premises.
I think that the hours that go on the license need to reflect when your service hours. Certainly people can be in the restaurant preparing and all of that, but they need to be open the hours on their license.
It's not a big deal, it's just a matter of when you're actually going to be operating.
I understand, and I would say that if the commission feels that they need to modify the start time, the application seeks 8 a.m. They do not intend to serve breakfast.
Right.
I would request a license be issued for 8 a.m. because it anticipates flexibility. So would we have a different opening time on Saturdays and Sundays than on Mondays through Friday? I don't know of any licenses that carry that. I just...
Also, when we purchased the license, we're purchasing an 8 a.m. license. When we purchased our other license in Cambridge, there were licenses licenses that actually opened at 8 a.m.
Mhm.
And that's what we were purchasing at the time. So the cost of this license, whatever we paid for it, would include the fact that it opens at 8 a.m.
Mhm.
If we sell this license down the road to someone who wants to open at 8 a.m., they wouldn't have to amend the license.
But you're gonna have advertised hours of, let's say for the sake of argument, 11 o'clock Monday through Friday, opening time or 10:30, whatever.
Right.
And then on the weekends, because you wanna operate a brunch service, it'll be at 10 o'clock, you said?
Mhm.
Both those days?
I understand the point. In my experience, and I wouldn't say this is the case in all licenses, but I think the vast majority of licenses have a start time earlier than when actual service begins. That's just a historic anomaly in my experience, and it does provide the licensee with flexibility in the event they wish to, on occasion, serve, be open and serve. It's the CV license versus the alcohol license. Those hours tend to run concurrently rather than have separate hours. It's a single license, alcohol with food. As I said, our preference would be to have the hours as requested. I don't believe the prior applicant served breakfast, but I might be wrong. They operated with an 8 a.m. license. I don't recall this as an issue in the past.
It's always been my understanding that we need to demonstrate, or at least reflect the actual hours of operation. So we can't take it.
I agree, I have seen this occur more regularly when people are not open for lunch. There are some fine dining restaurants that are only open at 5 in the evening, dedicated towards that. But obviously we'll defer to the commission, but our preference would be, we are acknowledging that there is no current plan to operate for breakfast, and there will be a plan to operate for lunch, starting at 10 a.m. on the weekends.
Do any members of the public wish to be heard on this? Executive Director?
I think you might want to know what the the video screens and the film projector screens are.
Well, it's the same, I think for intended TVs, it's the same line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify it.
Right, well, so the application asks for, in the same line, TV, video screen, or film production screen. And we've indicated 3, but it's intended to be 3 televisions.
And you have a pledge also.
That's correct, there is a pledge to the Cambridge Savings Bank.
Any further questions?
The backgrounds are fine. I need the abutter notifications. I saw that about them.
Would you like to make a motion, or do you want to discuss the opening hours issue?
I think it's an issue in terms of if their operation hours are only going to be for lunch and dinner, that those hours should reflect in the license. That's my view.
I just asked point of inquiry whether the executive director has a position as to what is the practice of licenses, because my experience is that the 8 a.m. opening time is routinely granted on CV licenses of this nature, alcohol CV licenses, even for establishments that don't have any immediate plans to serve breakfast. It is as enjoyable as it is to come here. It can sometimes be cumbersome to then decide at some point you might wish to add a breakfast, you might wish to host a breakfast, and then to learn that, well, in order to do so, you have to file an application, you have to advertise, you have to notify abutters. And we're talking an hour of day where restaurants, there's no evidence of any conflict with conduct at restaurants between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. that I've ever heard of. I'm sure that there's an exception to that general statement, but it does allow the licensee some flexibility. I don't think the public interest is compromised by the fact that even though the license reflects that, it provides flexibility for a business to make an adjustment to serve the public if the need or the business opportunity presents itself, and that's the reason we have historically sought 8 a.m. start times for licenses such as this. It certainly has little to do with the service of alcohol at 8 in the morning, whether they're open for breakfast or not at some point. I don't think we would expect that. So I wouldn't suggest that it's a burden to restrict it, but I do think that, if circumstances were to warrant a change, or they've been Harvard-Square operators for years, but maybe commencement week is a business breakfast, and they might decide a week before we're going to start hosting Irish breakfast.
See, I think that's it. So I would submit to you the reason why you have that process to give public notice and give people, the public, an opportunity to comment whether or not you're going to change those hours. And for an operator, and I know these operators very well, and I'm not questioning their integrity. I think they're great operators. I just think that if you're just going to say to an operator, you can open whenever you want, basically, even though my intention is to open just for lunch and dinner, because they're going to have occasions when they may want to do something separate, then there's no notice back to the commission. And I think there's no notice to the public. And the public may have an issue with an earlier opening, and you need to give them an opportunity to comment on that.
We advertised at 8 a.m. and we're here today, and no one has commented on it. There isn't any suggestion here that we would look to do this arbitrarily. The point is that I quite agree, the public needs to be placed on notice. So the public is being placed on notice that this restaurant may be open at 8 a.m. So here we are at a public hearing on transferring an 8 a.m. license from one operator to another operator. Evidence suggests that the prior operator wasn't open for breakfast either. We'd like to maintain that flexibility. This is the forum, this is the opportunity for the public to comment about whether they have reservations about an 8 a.m. start time here. The fact of the matter is that the present intention of the operator is not to serve breakfast. I don't mean to belabor the point, but this is the public notice, this is the public forum. So if there is reservations, this would be the time for them to be aired. Conversely, if the license hours are scaled back to a later start time, they won't have that flexibility, and then we will need to do, as the commissioner says, to renotice and inform the public. But if we're here today requesting that flexibility, I would ask the commission to approve it, or obviously make a modification that you feel necessary. But I think there is ample precedent and practice throughout licenses in the city for start times at 8 a.m.
Can I also add that in the 25 years that we've had licenses in Cambridge and Boston, I think the 8 a.m. start time was to create uniformity within all licenses, so that people would know when it started, so that each licensee couldn't have a specific time when they open, 8:30, 10, 11, 12. It was, you either open at 8 a.m. or you open at, there were two, it seemed to me like there were two times.
I remember having countless number of conversations about operators coming in and saying that they're going to have a license for a period of time, but they're only going to operate for a certain period of time. And at least while I've sat on this commission, we've always insisted that you've got to have the licenses for the period of time that you plan to operate. This is the first time I'm hearing that we routinely grant a license. At least I didn't vote on the Kenny license. I wasn't here for that, so I'm not sure what they did prior to that situation. But I don't recall ever voting on a license that they had this wide berth of time, but they were going to operate a restricted period of time within that window. The conversation's always been about the fact your license reflects the times you're actually operating. That's been my understanding because I've been sitting on this board for 9 years.
I think that's perfectly sound policy and practice. I don't disagree. I understand that. I just think we're talking about a few hours, and so so it's 10 o'clock. So should it be 10 a.m. and then brunch gets busy and some crowds start forming at 9:45, can they be served a cup of coffee? I mean,
I have a question. So the license you purchased, the hours stated in the application are the hours on the license you purchased? Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct.
And I don't believe they served food at 8 AM, right?
These gentlemen would know better, they were neighbors, I don't know, they might have had a weekend breakfast like that.
They didn't serve food at 8 AM. The venue before them didn't serve food at 8 AM, and the 99 probably didn't serve food at 8 AM, but it was an 8 AM license that we bought.
So you can make a motion.
I make a motion that the application be approved as submitted.
I will second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, no. I'm gonna say no. Any other motion?
I make a motion that the license for the alcohol license reflect the hours of actual operations for the operator. So whether it's 10:30 or 11 o'clock and then 10 o'clock on the weekends, that's really the prerogative of the owners. But I think that you really need to advertise, and it's always been my understanding, advertise the hours of the license reflect the hours of actual operator.
So we would ask you what those hours are that you,
Well, in light of the commission's vote, prior vote, then I would ask to be allowed to orally amend the application to the hours to be 10 a.m. Recognizing that breakfast will not be served, but 10 a.m. would be a consistent time because it would allow for weekend service and earlier lunch service. 10 a.m.?
I don't think you need to have uniform time across the entire week. If you plan on having lunch starting later during the weekdays, and you plan on doing a brunch on the weekends, I think that could be reflected in the license.
Well, the reason I say 10 a.m. is I think that my understanding is lunch starts at 11. And, but if a group arrived at 10:45 and wanted to be seated and the restaurant was up and ready to go, they might want to be able to do that. So to be candid, it just strikes me, we're talking about an hour of the day, whether it's 10 or 11 in the morning, where we're not going to see an awful lot of activity. And hours do change depending on demand. So I respect the commission's desire to see consistency with hours of operation and actual operation. So I would ask that the 10 a.m. amendment was comfortable acknowledging that we probably will not begin service until 11, in which case I don't want you to have to take successive votes. So
I think what we're asking is what hours of operation do you anticipate?
Well, I think we've been clear on that, Mr. Chairman. We intend to begin serving at lunchtime, and I would say 11 a.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday is when it is anticipated on the current proposed schedule that they will be serving food and alcohol. And what I'm asking the commission is in anticipation of a serving time beginning at 11, that we be given 1 hour of flexibility in, say, 10 a.m., just to accommodate the occasional instance when there might be a demand prior to the 11 a.m.
So why couldn't your CV license reflect the 7 o'clock opening as opposed to your liquor license?
Well, I defer to the executive director as to whether we have different start times on CV licenses and alcohol licenses. They tend to be the same license. It's a CV license with alcohol.
We do actually have some that have different CV hours than alcohol hours. It's not the norm, but we do have some.
Right. I mean, I'm gonna guess the SNS serves breakfast before 8 a.m. and 8 a.m. is the statutory limit, as the commission well knows, as to when alcohol can be served. It can't be served before 8 a.m., so I'm sure there are a few places that serve alcohol, that are open before 8 a.m. and they might have a different CV. I really don't want to belabor the point. I apologize if we've gone on. I did not, either 11 a.m., I think the preference here, we stated our preference, we've heard the vote of the commission. I would ask the commission to allow us a 1-hour flexibility and do 10 a.m. across the board. But I want to acknowledge that it's unlikely that there will be service prior to lunchtime, but lunch can be.
But that defeats the whole purpose of this conversation we just had. So you want the hour, but you're not gonna open at 10 o'clock, right?
Well, no, I think it's a matter of degree, with all due respect, Commissioner. You said this wide berth, which I assume the 3 hours between 8 and 11 you were characterizing as wide, so we narrowed 2 hours off the berth to 1 hour.
Yeah, but I'm not saying in that context. If your clients wanted to open up at 8 o'clock, and that's what reflected on the license, I wouldn't have any problem with it.
No, I understand it. I recognize that.
Okay.
So it's probably, the commission should be commended for its diligence, because I'm willing to bet that in other transfers and applications, this level of attention isn't given to the staff time. So at any rate, so that is correct. So, and I fully hear, but we're not representing, and want to be completely candid, there's no representation here that there is any immediate plan to begin serving food or alcohol at 8 a.m. during the week. The license application reflected that. We heard the commission's vote. The likelihood on the current plan is lunch and dinner, and lunch would be unlikely would begin before 11.
So theoretically, we could come back to the board, and if we wanted to open earlier, we could get the 8 a.m.
You have to make an application.
You have to do an application, public hearing, and then the vote, consider.
So I'll make a motion that the restaurant and CV license and alcohol license be approved for 10 a.m. opening on Saturday and Sunday, and 11 a.m. opening Monday through